about the clinical importance of conducting real-world studies following drug approvals like the one that you have with Rimegepant, and lasmiditan?
So it is definitely very important to conduct those real world studies because FDA approval is usually based on clinical trials and limitations exist in all clinical trials. So the results of the clinical trials might not be applied to every individual, and the study duration of the clinical trials might not be long enough to conclude the long-term safety and tolerability of the new medication. So to speak more specifically about the study we are conducting, there are well-designed phase 3 randomized controlled trials to establish the safety, efficacy, and tolerability of the 3 medications like the Rimegepant, and lasmiditan. However, there are several limitations in those clinical trials. For example, the study excluded the patients with chronic migraine, which means that patients that had more than 15 headache days per month or at least 8 migraine days. And chronic migraine were actually chronic migraine patients actually compose of the majority of patient population in our practice. Additionally, the safety, efficacy, and tolerability of those medications were based on the evaluation of one single attack. Therefore, we definitely need more data to determine whether there's a consistency of treatment effect if you kind of treat with multiple attacks. And we need more data on whether it's safe to use it, whether it is well tolerated over a period of time. So given that there's currently no real-world data or patient experience to validate the study's finding, in a patient population, like our population, like patient with complex comorbidities, chronic migraine, patient who had multiple ineffective treatment trials, and they are also concurrently using other medications, such as who are patients that were prescribed like Gepants, like Rimegepant or Rimegepant, were also like a CGRP monoclonal antibody. Those patients were excluded in clinical trials. So I think definitely it's very important to have data from the real world studies so our patients and clinicians feel more comfortable using those newly FDA approved medications.
How do you feel as though that your specific data set impacts clinical and patient care for those with migraine going forward?
Yeah, definitely. I believe the result of this study is very important. Well, it will provide actually a very important clinical evidence that will supplement the results of the currently placebo-controlled clinical trials and inform decision-making in clinical practice. So we aim to provide clinicians and patients with more information in terms of the efficacy, safety, and tolerability of the new acute migraine treatments and to facilitate the discussion. I think with the information from the clinical trials, the clinical studies that we are conducting, we hope both the clinicians and patients would feel more comfortable using or not using these medications. And hopefully the information will ultimately improve the care of billions of people with migraine and improve their quality of life.
Is there anything else that people should know about your study?
Definitely, I want to emphasize again that we have, especially over the past 2 years, there are a lot more treatment options that became available to migraine patients. So we are doing this real world data. And as you can see from other studies in this AHS meeting, there are real world data for other medications as well, such as the monoclonal CGRP antibodies. So I think with all the information, then patients and clinicians would feel more comfortable, like discussing this medication, using or not using the medication. So definitely want to hopefully with all the information, we can improve the quality of life of migraine patients. I want to provide more hope to patients that suffer from migraine.